just like last time. So you are free to. So I will be teaching a certain topic and will give say a couple of minutes time to ask your questions. You are free to unmute your mic and ask the questions, or you can post the questions in the chat box and I will be able to answer to your questions. So let me start the lecture. So this week we will be discussing about the risk management. This is one of the easiest chapters in this entire course. Yeah, so I started getting chat messages now. Oh yeah, so this is one of the easiest chapters, and let's see what is it all about. So this is with respect to the risk involved in the global supply chain, and I have made a small modification to today's in-class assessment. So in-class assessment is your group assignment. There's a small change in it, so I will discuss that once we are reaching the end of this presentation. And the presentation which I'm going to show you will be slightly different from what you are already having, but nothing to worry. There are some pictures in this particular thing, but there is nothing beyond that particular thing. But let's see the things in it. So the key things which we will be discussing in a distribution risk management, referring to the things that have to be moved from the supplier to the customer, the distribution part of it, the risk issues, as well as the different risk mitigation strategies. So to start with the first picture, which is shown here. So this is a risk. For instance, a company called Hanjin Shipping is one of the largest. So if you look at the top 10 the container carriers, this was one of the largest. This was the world's largest seventh largest shipping container, and things were going very well. And suddenly, on August 31st, 2016, this company declared bankruptcy. So what happened was 82 ships carrying around 54,000 containers of cargo worth 14 billion. It got stranded worldwide. So this is the case of a company which was performing very well and then suddenly becoming bankrupt, leading to disruptions in the supply chain. And some other issues which can possibly affect international trade. So this is a picture, for instance. So we have discussed like the time it takes to ship an item from one location to the other. It can vary from say a few days time, say for instance, say 30 days plus. So it can go on till say around 45 to 60 days if you want to ship something from Asia to say Canada. So the typical time could be around 35 to 40 days. So this is an example where the container got a fire accident. So the typical risks which we discussed in the global trade are like the shipment has got totally disappeared, or the container, for instance, the ship has been carrying lots of containers due to some issues during the journey. Like there was some problem with the ship and the container just fell inside the sea. Things are very common like this. And some other issues are in terms of say things are getting stolen from within the ships. This is another common issue which is normally there. Or if you are shipping say rice or something, things are getting wet so that it can never be reused and things like that. So there are lots of risks involved in shipping items through containers or through the ocean transportation. So the same thing. So it's not just limited to the ocean alone. So we'll be seeing the more things in this. So some of the threats to cargo typically are in terms of the loss of cargo or damage to the cargo or the theft which can happen when the ship is moving. So these are the common risks which can happen to cargo. Now, this is an example. So this is a case in 2018, I guess during the March, so a couple of years back. So in Karachi port, there were like a ship was waiting there, and a ship which was carrying containers just came inside the port, and there was a collision between two ships, which led to say around 20 containers falling inside the sea. So this is just a photo of that particular thing. I'm not showing the video because it normally affects, but how it happened was there was a ship which was there, which got collided with another ship which was carrying the containers, leading to the loss of the containers which it was carrying. So this is another risk which can happen in. So this is not, so there's a question, how did this happen? So that's what I was saying. So possibly towards the end, I will show this particular video. The person, the container, there's a ship which was carrying that particular thing, lost its control. It was supposed to, so there was some issue with, so due to some tide or something, there was a reduction in the sea level. The person was not able to control it properly. So it was not a big hit or anything. It just touched that particular thing. But that touch is really unexpected, and that led to, because if you see in here, the containers are kept one over the other. So due to the collision, it led to like losing say 19 containers. So yeah, and they fell inside this particular port. So this is another risk. So the next risk is, so the next risk which can happen is, so the company which is carrying the ships, carrying the containers, may not be told exactly what is being kept inside it. So this is the case of weapons could be smuggled or illegal things. So for instance, drug or whatever can be shipped from one place to the other. So this is another risk which can happen in the case of cargo. This is a threat which can happen. So as I was saying, so this is the easiest chapter. Most of the things is something like are already known to us. So we just are trying to look at this particular thing. And towards the end of it, so today this topic has even more relevance. So that's why I just changed your group assignment. So let's see the contents in this particular slide. This is part of your textbook. And then we will discuss the group assignment for today. So another risk which can typically happen is in terms of the piracy. So when the ship is moving from one location to the other for a longer time, so the pirates or robbers can attack the ships. So this is a data for 2017, so 3 years back. The first quarter has seen around 43 ships being attacked. So there are certain specific locations which are like the hotspots for these piracy actions. And then going forward, so whenever there is any, so if you are inside a carrier, if you are sensing some sort of an issue, so there is something called as an IMB, Piracy and Armed Robbery Report. IMB stands for the International Maritime Bureau. So they have this particular thing wherein the people who are carrying the carriers, they can say that there is a potential chance of attack on their ships. So this is a map which shows how the thing. So if you see in here, so there are different colored things being shown here. So for instance, the yellow line typically refers to the attempted attack. The orange line refers to, so attempted attack is wherein the person who is the carrier feels that somebody is actually chasing their ship and there could be an attack on that ship. So, and there are multiple options. So the second option is like they boarded the ship. So nothing serious happened, but people actually came inside the ship to steal the material. Or things could be even red colored thing refers to hijack. The things have been hijacked. So there are different things. So if you go to the IMB is the International Maritime Bureau, the website, there is an option for reporting these things. So this is from that information. And the typical things which have been attacked during say 2016, this is an old data, but still what it shows is, last time I was discussing about, say, break bulk or container and different types of cargo. So if you see in here, all the different varieties of vessels which we have seen last time, so none of them is exempted from the piracy. So this is another major issue. So in case of shipping, so some of the strategies which could be adopted for mitigating this is doing a proper due diligence before. So if you are the supplier, if you are planning to use a certain carrier for shipping your item from your country to the destination, make sure you do the proper due diligence, check the experience of the carrier, check whether the personnel in that, the crew members are qualified, check their track record, ask the carrier, so get opinion about, like, you can, if you're planning to look for a new carrier, get to know the different customers of that carrier, discuss with them before you actually venture into giving your material to that particular carrier, and so on. So the final thing which is shown here is the check the financial status. So the very first slide which I show, a company, Hanjin Shipping Company, which was one of the largest shipping carriers. So they just became bankrupt. So check the financial status. So do the proper due diligence. That's what it means. And for the documentation part of it, make sure that all the necessary documents are there in terms of the bill of lading, in terms of the custom documents. If you are shipping, the necessary safety certificates, necessary permits which are needed for shipping the material from one location to the other, and so on. So make sure that these are some ways in which the risk could be mitigated. Now, before going forward, is there any question? I'll just wait for a couple of minutes here. In case there is a question, you can ask me now. Okay, I'm not getting any questions. So let me go forward. So this is the other part of it. Simarji?
Namaste. Auntie ji.
Please unmute. Please mute your mic.
Food I prepare early in the morning and then sit down with their.
So I'm going forward. So please make sure that, I know that there are many distractions which can happen when you are working from home. So please mute your mic unless you have to really ask a question. So let me go forward here. So the next potential issue is in terms of the terrorism. There is nothing much that I have to explain here. So this is the map which typically represents. So the red colored ones are supposed to be having the high threat level, and the green colored ones are wherein the threat is lower. So this is just a understanding. So this is representing the terrorist attacks which have happened in different parts of the world in terms of the intensity. So the red color represents the high level of attacks, and the green color again representing the low level of attacks. So just to make sure that the terrorist attacks can have an implication on the shipping. Now this is in terms of the Europe. Now the impact of, so how the thing is, we all can understand how terrorism can affect the supply chain, but then so what this is showing is beyond 9/11 attack, how did US try to mitigate the effect of, or how did they improve the cargo security for certain things? So what has been done is there is something called as a CTPAT, or Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism. So it is a security program which US has implemented. So what they have said is, so if you want to send, if you have to be a partner with US, and if you have to export your material to USA, so you need to sort of be part of this agreement. This is something which says that, so if you are a supplier and if you have vetted your, like say, suppliers, if a country wants to send a material from, say, country X to USA, the country has to make sure that the suppliers are providing the correct material, and they have been, the necessary vetting has been done on those suppliers. So this is a method which US has implemented, and many countries have implemented this, different parts, different acts to prevent this. So many countries have developed similar programs. The idea is to protect the relationship with the US or other countries as well, to make sure that the trade relationship is not getting affected. If there is any non-compliant import, if there is any, for instance, if the country is trying to, if there is some issue with the supplier, so it can result in problems. So in order to avoid the issues associated with the terrorism, certain programs have been implemented. So these are some of those programs which I am showing here. So in Canada, the program is called as PIP. Just remember for Canada. So PIP refers to Partners in Protection Program. So that's the program which Canada has implemented within to avoid the ill effects due to terrorism. Now, this is the other act of terrorism. So the terrorism doesn't necessarily mean that there is an attack which is happening. The other attacks can happen in terms of the cyber terrorism. So issues in terms of, say, the people who are hacking the accounts and then creating virus attacks. So it has also affected lots of supply chain. It has resulted in supply chain disruptions. Also, we just looked at the effect of terrorism. The next issue is in terms of the hijacking. So again, hijacking, the typical calculation is yearly there is a loss. So worldwide, if you look at, there is a loss as much as, say, between $30 billion to $50 billion is anticipated as the loss due to hijacking. So not going further. So this is another issue. So in terms of hijacking in Canada, how things are affecting, the top 3 items which are being normally hijacked are in terms of the food or drink, home or garden, and electronic goods. So just trying to see how hijacking is affecting, say, Canada, USA, and so on. So now, how can you then, this is the, so how we are studying is we are just looking at the common things, common risk issues, and then we are trying to see what could be some of the strategies which can be adopted by companies to avoid the bad effects. Now, this is a risk mitigation. So these things are there in your slides, risk mitigation strategies. So last week I spoke about the dangerous goods. Dangerous goods are typically chemicals or oil or anything which can be, let's say, potentially fatal to the person who is using it without proper protection. So if you are trying to transport dangerous goods, make sure, so normally it is done through, say, pipeline. So make sure, or whatever way, so make sure that you have the necessary permit, you have the necessary regulations. And if you are sending it in, say, different boxes, make sure that the labels which you are putting actually mention that it is a dangerous good. So this is something which I will be discussing next week, wherein I speak about the harmonized system which is being practiced. It's called a GHS, Global Harmonized System, which is being practiced all across, so that there is no ambiguity in sending the material. So anyone who is getting the material knows what is inside it. And So specifically for dangerous goods, it's very important. And the packaging is securing things are being done properly. The vehicles which are, for instance, if you are shipping it if you are moving it in a train or if you are moving it in a truck, so whether it is following the necessary regulations and so on. So these are some of the risk mitigation strategies which are adopted for transportation of dangerous goods. Is there any question here? I'll wait for again a couple of minutes to answer. Okay, there is no question again. So now, so we have been discussing about the major issues which have happened in the ships, ocean carriers. So this is an example of how a rail disaster. So this has happened in Quebec in 2013. So let's see how things are looking like if things are not practiced correctly. So this is a risk associated and the entire place got deserted because of this. So some more pictures. And coming to some risk mitigation strategies here. So make sure that you're packaging your cargo properly. Make sure that, so if you are trying to keep the containers, make sure that they are being stacked properly. If there is some temperature or atmospheric regulation which has to be practiced, make sure that it is being done correctly as per the need of the material you are sending. The necessary insurance is taken and so on. And in terms of the legal considerations, so always make sure that the item which you are shipping is complying to all the rules of land of your destination as well. So for instance, certain items may be acceptable in the country where the supplier is present, but when the material is being shipped and the rules of land in the customer's land location may be different. So make sure that, so always look for what is being shipped, what's the shipment's final destination. So in what is the mode of transportation, and if some accident or if some natural disaster happens. So this is something like Incoterm we always spoke earlier. So who has to take the blame if something bad happens to it? If you have an insurance coverage, what's the percentage of coverage? And about the obligations of the different stakeholders. So that's what I was saying about the Incoterms and so on. So these are some of the risk mitigation strategies. So before sending anything, make sure that things are complying to the rules of the land in both the locations, to the country from where you are sending and the place where it is being received. So moving towards the next bit of it, we have like last bit of it in this. So this speaks about how the explosion. So this is another issue which can happen in case of hazardous chemicals. If your factory is not having the proper safety audits being conducted in your place, so the chances are high to have issues associated. So this was one of the explosions which is mentioned. So if you have a big chemical blast, it can, so it's a 2015 Tianjin blast. So it has resulted in around 170 people dying and multiple buildings being damaged and so on, which has led to around 1.1 billion losses. So these are just some impact of this. So that's it. So for instance, this week's lecture was very easy. It was just speaking about the risks involved in shipping the items and what are the different strategies. So I am pretty sure that this is something which all of you already knew the things. So I just want to wait for say a couple of minutes, and I want to tell you what the group assignment is going to look like for today. Is there any question that I can answer now? I'm happy to see now I have 21 participants. Yes, this is the first question. Okay. Just a couple of more minutes. So this is what I was telling when we were starting to study, like say the very first week or the second week. The course is designed in such a way that the course looks very, very difficult in the beginning, but towards the end it looks so easy. So it should have been put in the other way, possibly. Okay, so let me show what questions. So I have my group assignment questions, but I thought since we discussed about the risk issues and the risk mitigation, and considering the current COVID-19 situation, I just post this as the question. So the question is as follows. The question is, identify the risks associated with COVID-19 pandemic on the Canadian supply chain, and what are your recommendations to mitigate the risks? So the thing is, the Dropbox will be open today at say 1 o'clock, and you have time till this Sunday. So Sunday is the 5th of April. So, and just so it's same as your, this is your group assignment. You can submit as one member in your group needs to submit the assignment. Please write your group members. So in case you are not able to submit, or in case you're not able to participate with your group members due to whatever reasons, in that case, you can submit it as an individual assignment. So the maximum length of this assignment is just 2 pages. So it's very important since our subject is global supply chain, and this topic is on the risk mitigation and the risks. So nobody really thought of this, such a pandemic to happen, but since it's the reality now, I think it is good to think about it and at least read. Most of you are reading about it, so please focus your attention on the Canadian supply chain. And I just want to mention that you need to consider only 3 potential risks. You don't have to mention. If you look at the internet, you will get thousands of things. Take any 3. So in the first page of your assignment, you will be writing about those 3 risks. So when I say the risk, so let's say it will affect the food delivery, could be one of the things. So when you say food, you can be even super specific in saying which item you are referring to. And in your mitigation strategy recommendation, so please try to think, please try to use your common sense and use your knowledge and try to say that how that particular issue could be sorted out. So in that particular way, so what I am expecting is just a 2-page document which you will be submitting for your group assignment. Is there any question here? Great. So, and how, I hope you guys have started looking at your term project. So please start working at your term project as well. Nobody has asked me any doubt from this class about the term project. So I'm just saying that there are 2 issues in that particular thing which you need to find it out soon. If there is no other question, so that's it for today. So this was the easiest chapter, and your eConestoga Dropbox will be open at 1 o'clock, and you have time. So I recommend you can work today itself and submit, but you have time till the 5th of April at 11:59 p.m. Just 2-page document as a group or as individual. It's up to you to decide how you want to submit it. So this will be counting towards your 3% marks allocated to your in-class assignment. that's it for today. So the next week we will be discussing. So the next week thing is a bit more lengthier. This is wherein we will be studying about the different parts of the customs, and I will be showing you how the GHS is to be used for different products. That's it. That's it for today. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. So today I just took the attendance of whoever attended because I have to share it with your program coordinator. Thank you.